All praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakah Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, and Shalom to the elected nation of Israel. This is going to be a lesson on the uncircumcision versus the circumcision topic, right? And going into how that had nothing to do with Gentiles and Israelites, or heathens, or non-Israelites and Israelites. That had something to do with Israelites that began to follow two completely different lifestyles, or a group of Israelites anyway, that began to turn away from the laws of Yahweh, right? And then went into following after the laws of the heathen, right? So this is First Maccabees chapter 1 and I start at verse 11. In those days there went out of Israel wicked men, who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us. For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. Now, the heathens that he's talking about in this particular time was the kingdom of the Greeks, right? Because they pretty much was the main ruler of this time that we're reading about, right? Through Alexander the Greek conquering most of the world, right? He conquered most of the world, and the Greek way of living was the most honored or most glorified way of living at that time, man. So the reason why the Israelites would have had sorrow through or would have appeared or thought that they had sorrow through that time is because they was trying to seek praise from the world, but the world don't care for the laws of Yahweh. So you ain't gonna get praise from following after the Lord's way. And they would have been trying to intertwine themselves with the Greek way, but the Greek way and the Israelite way don't mix, man. Right? Verse 12. So this device pleased them well. Then certain of the people were so forward herein that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen, whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem according to the customs of the heathen. Now, when you actually read up about the places of exercise during the Greek times, right, you'll find that all of the people used to exercise naked, right? So the only reason why how people have even known that you're circumcised in the first place over men, because these Israelites, I'm not saying these Israelites were doing homosexuality. The only reason where they would have known that these Israelites was uncircumcised in the first place would have been because once they got to those places of exercise, everyone was naked in there, right? So the thing that separated and made the Israelites stand out in them times would have been that they have circumcised their penis, right? And the Israelites that would have been circumcised pretty much the majority of their life, and it would have been to where they pretty much was always like that, and they've ever only known themselves as being circumcised, right? They started to feel shame for themselves being circumcised. Now I'm gonna read this scripture first, verse 15, and made themselves uncircumcised, and forsook the holy covenant, and joined themselves to the heathen, and were sold to do mischief. So because the Greeks had power over the earth during that time, the Israelites wanted to intertwine themselves. Certain Israelites, not all, but loads of Israelites wanted to intertwine themselves, and they were literally making themselves uncircumcised, man. And I was looking it up yesterday. There was a thing called the Judaeus Pondus, and then another thing called the Judaeus Pondum, right? Which is a thing that Israelites was doing to make their to stretch the skin around the and recircumcise themselves, man. And then there's two other surgeries that people was talking about that was taking place during that time as well, right? One of them is epispasm, I believe is how you pronounce it, epispasm. And then the other one was Salakia, man. It's like unfibulation or something like that it's called, right? But there's things that was being done back then and still exist now in this world now that people can do to to uncircumcise their penis after he's been circumcised, man. Now, I'm going to go to this scripture here about the law of circumcision, because if somebody is circumcised, they can't really boast in being circumcised, because It happens when you're so young, right? It happens when you're so young that by the time you even acknowledge that you even get to an age where you even acknowledge that you have a genitalia really like that, right? It would have been that it's just always been uncircumcised here, right? This is Leviticus chapter 12 and verse 1. And Yahweh said unto Moses, saying, and Yahweh spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, saying, if a woman have conceived seed and born a man child, then she shall be unclean 7 days, according to the days of separation for her infirmity shall she be unclean. And in the 8th day, the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. So Israelites that would have been circumcised the 8th day according to the law, right, would have not known, had they not been around these Greeks that had power at the time and were mocking people that were circumcised, right? They would have not known that there was anything different. Really, they wouldn't have not known that that was a thing that some people looked down on, right? And they was being looked down on that. But because the Greeks had power in that time, they was able to make some of the Israelites feel shamed for having that. And then it's funny because even when you go to the New Testament, right, you find that even being circumcised anyway don't mean nothing. And even when you go to the Old Testament, it speaks about how the Israelites should become uncircumcised in their mind, right? Become uncircumcised in your mind. The flesh being uncircumcised don't mean nothing, because if an Edomite gets a circumcision, that don't mean anything. That don't mean anything. And a heathen cannot be uncircumcised in their mind. And in fact, let me get a scripture on that. Jeremiah chapter 9 and verse 25. Behold, the days come when, saith Yahweh, that I will punish all them that are circumcised with the uncircumcised, Egypt and Judah and Edom, and the children of Ammon and Moab, and all that are in the utmost corners, that dwell in the wilderness. For all these nations are uncircumcised, and all the house of Israel are uncircumcised in the heart. So when you go to the New Testament, it speaks about the uncircumcised or the uncircumcision, right? Is it talking about people that are uncircumcised in the flesh, which would be heathens, or is it talking about people that are uncircumcised in the mind, right? And this is what people that say that they believe in the scriptures are going to have to consider for themselves, man, because the Greeks during this time were really against Israelites circumcising themselves, because they wanted Israelites to forget their laws. Let's go to it. First Maccabees chapter 1 and verse 41. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people, and that everyone should leave his laws, so all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. And that's what they're like now, man. All these other nations don't really care about the ways of their forefathers, man. They don't care. They'll turn away from them ways if they can get a technology company started up and be able to be joint heirs with Esau. The only one that ain't like that, right, is a small remnant of Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans who are the Israelites, man. That's the only people that really care about saying that the law still exists and it's worthwhile. Everybody else is happy to say it's done away with, man. So that they can do things and never feel shame. When these people do things, they don't feel shame no more, man. They don't feel like a guilt. You know what I mean? They don't think, man, what that just took place there was wicked. If they accidentally, they won't accidentally eat pork. They won't look at a packet and say, oh man, there was pork in that. They'll deliberately go out of their way to eat pork. Verse 43, yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion, and sacrificed unto idols, and profaned the Sabbath. For the king had sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, that they should follow the strange laws of the land, and forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbaths and festival days, and pollute the sanctuary and holy people, set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beasts, and that they should also leave their children uncircumcised, right? And make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation. So when you go to the New Testament, it starts talking about uncircumcision. That's these Israelites that was bowing down to that way and saying, you know what? We're going to leave our children uncircumcised, right? And on top of that, we're going to follow after the ways, right, of these people. We're going to follow after the ways of these people that are ruling the earth right now. And we're going to leave the laws of Yahweh behind. Verse 49, to the end they might forget the law. In fact, let me go verse 48 again. That they should also leave their children uncircumcised and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation, to the end they might forget the law and change all the ordinances. And the uncircumcised Israelites, that's exactly right. The uncircumcised Israelites, the Israelites that agreed to do this, right, versus the Israelites that didn't agree to do this. There were Israelites that did agree to do this. That's exactly what ended up happening to them. To the end they might forget the law and change all the ordinances. And when you go to the New Testament, right, all those Gentiles that it's speaking about, those are Israelites that are that Yahweh set up Paul and other Israelites to show that, listen, man, the time back in this time that I'm reading about now, that time there, you've been forgiven for all of that, because all the Israelites that ended up in this time, in this same time, following the laws, they've also went astray anyway. They've also went astray and sinned and did the same kind of things that you all weren't doing. And some among you, right? Some among you that their fathers were telling you to stay uncircumcised and were making you follow after these wicked ways. Eventually, some of you that were born from these fathers that did these things, some of you, it was just natural in you to not follow after some of these ways because you're an Israelite. And that's where you get the whole concept that I'm going to read right now. Let me read verse 50 though first. And whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, that he should die. And they were killing people, man. And when you jump down and you go to verse, I'll read it quickly. Verse 60, at which time, according to the commandment, they put to death certain women that had caused their children to be circumcised. So they were killing Israelites for them circumcising their children, man. And they hanged their infants about their necks and rifled the houses and slew them that had circumcised them, right? But the Maccabees, right, Mattathias, he wasn't with all that. He was about the laws of Yahweh, man. Right now, I went into the uncircumcision topic, but I want to go to this because people try and make it like, man, the uncircumcised is talking about Gentiles. No, it ain't, man. Second, Romans chapter 2 and verse 25, for circumcision verily profiteth if thou keep the law, but if thou be a breaker of the law, thy circumcision is made uncircumcision, which is exactly what I was reading about in First Maccabees, because even if certain of those Israelites that would have already been circumcised according to the 8th day anyway, right, by their parents, even those ones that would have been physically circumcised, they were some of them saying, forget the laws of Yahweh. We're going to follow after the ways of the Greeks. We're going to make a place to exercise. We're going to be naked in there. We're going to have baths and spas. And we're going to turn this gym atmosphere into a business. And anyone that wants to do business is going to have to go through this place of exercise, because this place of exercise is a man-only thing that people are going to be coming here and talking about business. That's what them gyms were back in that time, man. It's not like how it is now, with women setting up tripods for their YouTube channel and men setting up tripods for their YouTube channel. It was different than that, man. It was a place where people was going for business, right? So then by you being circumcised, they would have looked at you strange, man. They would have looked at you strange and would have tried to not do business with you. And the Israelites, certain Israelites that were wicked, were feeling pressure from that, man. Instead of just believing in the laws of Yahweh. And this is what the uncircumcision topic is talking about. He's not talking about Gentiles, because the Gentiles ain't never kept the laws of Yahweh. When have they ever kept them? And this verse right here is going to prove that. Romans chapter 2 and verse 25, for circumcision verily profiteth if thou keep the law, But if thou be a breaker of the law, thy circumcision is made uncircumcision. Therefore, if the uncircumcision keep the righteousness of the law, shall not his uncircumcision be counted for circumcision? But these Christians don't even say that they kept the law. They say that the reason why they're going to get the new covenant and the Israelites are not going to is because they believed in the Lord, which they don't even believe that neither, because they don't tell the truth about his image. They lie. They lie about that. It really offends them to read about what his image looks like, man, because when they see that image in this world, they hate it. When these Christians see a so-called black man with grey hair and a grey beard, they're angry that he was even able to live that long. They're angry about it. When they see a so-called black man growing a beard, they feel the need to mention it. They're offended at us having a beard. But when they watch some Viking TV show, right, they're always going to try and show the Vikings with beards on there and be like, oh man, that's so manly. The beards and the axes, right? Which that ain't even them. But then they'll say we was kings, but they're the ones running around saying that they was everyone. And they also like to say that Hebrew Israelites are wearing dresses, right? But whenever they make a movie showing what they think the Messiah looks like, isn't it always in a long flowing garment down to the feet? And they never call that a dress. Isn't it fascinating? And they know that they've never saw no woman in their life in something like what they're saying that them men are wearing that they call dresses. They've never seen it ever in their life. And then at the same time, they'll say that Hebrew Israelites are wearing a dress. But when they literally see a man wearing a dress that's part of the alphabet community, they ain't going to say nothing. When they literally see a man in a dress, they ain't got nothing to say. Verse 26, therefore if the uncircumcision keep the righteousness of the law, shall not his uncircumcision be counted for circumcision? And shall not uncircumcision, which that's the reason why during the time of the Maccabean period, the Hasmonean dynasty, right? That's the reason why those Israelites, them not circumcising their children, was such a big deal. Had they have left their children uncircumcised, but have been keeping the laws, it wouldn't have been a problem. But they was doing both. They was they was keeping themselves uncircumcised, right? And they were breaking the laws. And on top of that, if they were circumcised, they was making themselves uncircumcised again by stretching their foreskins, man. By stretching skin around that area to recover over their private parts, man. And if you don't believe it, look it up. Look it up, man. Judaeus Pondus. Look up epispasm, right? And you will see that it is a procedure to uncircumcise your penis. Verse 28, for he is not a Jew, which is one outwardly, right? Which, what does that mean? That means that you wearing a garment don't make you an Israelite, man. Don't make you an Israelite. Don't mean that, oh, you're keeping the laws and you're righteous because you're an Israelite that's got a garment on, or because you were circumcised because it was so young that you do it, that you can't boast in it. Anyway, it happened when you was 8 days old if you were circumcised according to the law. 8 days old. 8 days. Who remembers being 8 days old in this world, man? Who remembers that? Nobody, right? Neither is that circumcision which is outward in the flesh, right? But he is a Jew which is one inwardly. And that don't mean that a Moabite can be a Jew, because they can't. That don't mean that an Edomite can be a Jew, because they can't. Because a false balance is an abomination to the Lord. So if it was possible for a Jew to be, a Moabite or an Edomite to become a Jew, would it be possible for reverse ways then? For a Jew to become a Moabite, is that possible then? I don't think they're going to say that. They're not going to say that, man. And then these same Christians will complain about immigration. But then what if they're saying that they're going to live exactly like you then? Are you going to accept that and say, oh, there's no more nations, no more? No, you ain't going to say that, man. You're going to try and get in where you can get a benefit, man. That's what they're going to try and do. as if your people haven't went to everyone else's countries and jacked them up. And then you got the nerve to be crybabies complaining about people coming to your countries now. But you went to their countries too and still go. And that's why when the summer comes, right, Edomites are really quick to get out of England, man. They're quick to get out and quick to get out of their countries and go to where everyone else is, man. And get that cheap labor and that cheap ass conversion rate, man, to where one of their money is now worth 1,000 of the other country that they're in. And just buy up things and haggle. Oh, me no likey sandals, two price high. Me no likey or too expensive, and with that broken English and try and haggle down the price, man. And not give the people of the land the price that the things are worth. And complain that a coffee in the mountainside is costing $10 and that it's way more expensive than Starbucks. As if when you're eating Starbucks, you get a view of mountainsides. You don't get a view of the mountainside. You get the view of some crackhead on the side of the street and someone homeless begging for money, man. That's what you get the view of from a Starbucks. But these Edomites will complain about the prices of things in other people's countries, right? To where they can't even make no money from the things that they're doing. Verse 29, but he is a Jew which is one inwardly, and circumcision is that of the heart, within the heart in the spirit, and not in the letter, which is not of praise, but of men. Now, let me show this prophecy, man. And no one can say that the Torah ain't for the Israelites. If you say that, man, there's some words I could say that you are, but I'm going to try and not say that. But if you say that this scripture is not for the Israelites, then you're lying POS, right? Deuteronomy chapter 13, verse 6. And Yahweh, thy power will circumcise thine heart and the heart of thy seed, to love Yahweh thy power with all thine heart and with all thy soul, that thou mayest live. Yahweh is going to circumcise the Israelites. Now, does it say he's going to circumcise the heathen? Verse 7. And Yahweh, thy power will put all these curses upon thy enemies and on them that hate thee, which persecuted thee. So they ain't getting no circumcision of the heart. They're getting cursed. That's what they're going to get for everything that they've did to the Israelites, man, lying. The circumcision topic is not a thing that's to no heathens, man. It's to Israelites, right? And those Israelites that would have been circumcising themselves, keeping themselves uncircumcised and breaking the laws to the end that they might forget the laws, right? They did end up forgetting them, man. And then now in this modern world, the majority of every single Israelite didn't know that there was an Israelite, man. They was discontinued from the heritage that Yahweh gave them, just like the scripture said they was going to. So you got Volkan Malone and all these people saying, nah, that ain't true. Yes, it is true. Ephesians chapter 2 and verse 11. Wherefore remember that ye being in times past Gentiles in the flesh. Now, how were the Gentiles in the flesh? Because they was keeping themselves uncircumcised, who are called uncircumcision by that which is called the circumcision in the flesh made by hands. Because they was calling them Israelites that didn't circumcise themselves the uncircumcision. But not only because they didn't circumcise themselves, but because they wasn't even keeping the laws. That's what was happening, man. Shalom.